Okay, so we're going to start. It's 2:01. Thank you everyone for joining. Glad to have you here. So if you haven't done that yet, please join the Discord. We're going to post the video after. You also find more resources soon. And first things first, I'm going to play a quick video that we put together. That's going to be the kickoff of this session of this webinar.
Yearbook Photo Studio utilize a combination of LLM, the text-image stable diffusion Excel model, and face swap techniques to transform your user's current photo into a retro yearbook image.
Hello world, hello Omnitool.ai.
And foremost, we're going to have Nick's going to present the Georg. So yeah, we can press next.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. So in the very first, before we start, let's invite our brilliant mind behind Omnitool, one of our founder, Georg, to give us an introduction. Georg, over to you.
Yeah, hello. So this is what we've been building for the last, 10 months, 11 months, I think. And I'll go a little bit into the background of what we're trying to do, what we built. So I think for the last 3 years, generative AI has really started to take off, but I think it primarily entered people's consciousness, maybe around DALL-E, maybe around Stable Diffusion, definitely around ChatGPT, which I think was the iPhone moment for the technology. It's been cooking behind the surface for quite a bit longer, but I think after ChatGPT and the heavy push Microsoft and OpenAI did into the consumer market, it really got everyone's attention, right? And I think there's a lot of fears, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of underappreciation of the technology in some sense, and then there's a lot of hype. So you get all of it across the spectrum. And especially after 4 years, 5 years of other hype technologies, Web3, VR, the metaverse, NFTs, right? Just to name a few. It was pretty hard for people to maybe wrap their head around it, even decide whether or not this technology is the real thing. Is it the next technological wave? Emmanuel, my co-founder, and I decided already a while back that, yeah, this is actually real. This has real applications. But it becomes really hard for people to separate where the applications are, where's short-term value, where's long-term value. And one of the specific challenges I think that we have is that we're in this phase of explosion of capability. Like every week there's a new paper that says, hey, we can use this technology, primarily the technology behind most of the recent advances, the general purpose transformer GPT, to do things, right? We can do images with it, we can do video with it, we can do text generation with it. A few weeks ago, it was like, actually, you can forecast time series with it. You can turn 2D photos into 3D environments and import them into Unreal. So there's a lot of things we discover that this technology is applicable to, and there are thousands of people running out there trying to apply it, trying to find its limits, finding its applications. And of course, there's corporate hype, lots of corporate hype, like telling you that this is the next big thing and it's going to change your life, but not exactly how. and so on. And the biggest problem we found very quickly is the speed at which this all moves. Right, 2,000 papers a week on a place like Arxiv, preprints. These are preprints that will never be peer reviewed because it's 2,000 a week. And reliably every month, there's 2 or 3 of those papers that are truly earth-shattering, that are exploring new concepts that will like change it, the way we work, right? If you think back, if you had told me 3 years ago, 4 years ago that you could do the things you can do today, like create movies or create photorealistic images or transcribe a few dozen audio streams in real time, I would probably not have believed you. And now we look at it and go like, yeah, it's still not human. But the big challenge is really how do you stay on top? And I think the community, like the people who are out there, is very resemblant for the community that Manu and I experienced in gaming when we went into gaming in 2003. It was, you couldn't go out there, you couldn't say, find someone who knows gaming, because there were no universities, there were no degrees, there was no certifications. So you had to show up, you had to make something, you had to make a game, you had to make a mod and convince people that you should be hired and do that job, right? And we're in the same place right now. All the work on AI, apart from the big AI labs that are maybe building these models, the application of this technology to new industries, to existing industries, law, architecture, whatever it is done basically by nerds out there exploring the technology. And it's become really painful, even early last year already, to keep up with that. The tooling is shit. Like trying to set up Python to try out the newest technology. You do that 2-3 times, and then the Python installations on your machine become sentient, fight each other, and destroy your computer, and you have to start over, kind of thing. And so we set out, we decided, let's build something that allows us to stay on top of all of this. And we build a single unified interface, basically, with the idea of, if tomorrow a paper comes out and the community's way of figuring out what is real, what is not real has become GitHub. If you have a discovery to share, you can share your paper, but we're not going to read it until you put up the code. And when you have the code, it's about a week until it's on the platforms like Replicate, on Hugging Face, all the different places where you can run AI models. And we wanted to basically get the time to work with it down to almost zero, right? And that is what we've built in the last couple of months. We've sharpened pretty aggressively towards just this goal, allowing you to, if you read something, you see a paper, you see it out there within a week. Get that up and running, and within seconds, get it up and running in your tool and play around with it and compare it to the things that are already out there. So that's the idea. I'm gonna pass it back to Laurent or Nick, and we're gonna have a look at what you can do, how you can start it, get started with this, what you can build. And if there are questions, obviously we'll try to answer them. And hopefully this is good of like getting started, because as easy as we try to make it, when you try to build something like a universal interface, there are trade-offs to make. And I think accessibility at this point is certainly not where we want it to be. It will make progress, but I think having a little video, having a little bit of an introduction of how it works will really speed this up for people.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Georg, for the thorough introductions. We actually, Georg already covered this part, but just have a quick summarize. Let's take a step back and talk about what is Omnitool. So Omnitool is an open source AI desktop in your browser. We want to give you the access to the latest AI models from OpenAI, Replicate, Stable Diffusion, Google, or other leading providers, everything within one unified interface. And it's fully downloadable, so you can run in your local machines. And it's fully extensible in terms of the functionality. You can expand it or whatever you want. And interoperable, meaning that you don't have to take care about the data transmission inside Omnitool. We just handle that. I will elaborate more in the later slides. But Omnitool is like a shortcut to help allow you to explore, to learn, to build, and to stay ahead in the current wave of AI innovations. Then why we do this, I think Georg already mentioned that we identified there are 3 challenges because of the rapid tech race at this moment. The first one, quality inconsistent. There are half of the content is either not reliable or simply marketing, some hype, some underestimation, and there's no time for a proper reviews or for technology to reach a more stable phase. So quality inconsistent. And second one is skill gap or obsolescence. Still now, only people with engineer background could really understand and use AI. That leaves most people out and slow down new ideas. And it keeps changing. Even us, we look into this every day, we're still learning. We still have to run to keep on top of that. So it's really a big gap. And the last one, adaptability risk. Well, AI keep changing, committing to single vendor can be risky. It probably means increase the costs, limited the flexibility, and maybe unhealthy dependency. So Omnitool, we built this to address this. So you might wonder how we're going to address this. I think in the next session, we're going to gear a little bit to dive into the products, and we'll revisit these problems in the end. So what we are going to cover in our demo today, the first part, discover. So we start by how to explore the AI API models and run the pre-made AI recipes. And second part, we'll pick AI recipes. We dive into it to understand how it works and learn how we can tweak it to experiment with different outcomes. And third part, we will touch upon a bit relationship between API, blog, recipes, and we'll show you how to craft an AI recipe tailored to your specific use case. As we go through each session, I encourage everyone to ask questions through the chat, and we will pause and discuss between each sections. So don't hesitate, just bring out your question, raise your hand. So let's dive in now. Lohan, over to you.
Thank you, Nick. So first things first, like Omnitool.ai, we really try to create this kind of interface of like, it's something which is like natural, something kind of like very intuitive. So we choose this kind of like a desktop approach. So just to have like a quick view of like how like the software works. So you're having the workflow menu. So basically you're going to have like how you can load, save. You're going to have like a chat panels when you can have like put text input, video input, audio input, images input. Then you have all the side menu when you have your API key managers, and then you're having on the right the navigation bar. So it's something which is like fairly intuitive, and you will see like on the demonstration, we also have some like a tutorials video on our website. So basically, you can really easily and quickly use this interface. I'm going to pass to Nick because there is something we need to dive into, which is block.
Yeah, thank you, Lohan. So let's zoom in a bit more into the blocks. So this is just a very simple recipe that connects 3 blocks. It starts with an image sent into the chat, and the image is then passed into an image to text model, and the outcome is sent back to the chat interface. But the thing I want to highlight here is the interoperability within Omnitool. That means we abstract and we standardize different data formats. For example, for image, there are base 64 string, binary, or just simple URL for image. And when you're using these models on Omnitool, you don't need to worry about the detailed format that each model or API requires. All you need to ensure is just, should I send it a text? Should I send it an image or a video or audio? We'll handle the rest. So you can easily connect a different model, and you can easily swap between the model as long as they are also taking same kind of inputs. So without further ado, I'll hand over the mic back to Lohan to start showing some recipes.
Thanks, Nick. So there is something very important about like a Omnitool is like a pre-made recipes. So those ones are really going to help you like to understand like what are the latest trends in terms of AI, because we try to keep like those recipes updated quite often. You also have like a different kind of model. So again, interoperability is the keyword of like how we can like mix different kind of content together. I'm going to quickly also browse a bit of like what we can do with APIs. So we're going to see 3 recipes. One is not uploaded yet into like this list of recipes, but the first one is like how you can do something with like image, sound, and text with like a children's story. One is like one image to image, and how we can like describe images, analyze images to recreate an images. And as you can see on the bottom, that's Manu, the other co-founder. We're going to dive into the yearbook recipe. So I'm going to basically, disclaimer, we've recorded everything, so I'm going to play video. This is not real time because we are aware of like if you do some things live, most of the times it cannot work. So this is video, but slightly fast forward, but not that much. So this is the interface of like how you can like load recipe. You have a list of them, so I'm going to pick the children's story. I'm going to pause here a bit. So basically, you're going to have few things inside the block. The first one on the right is like where you have all your APIs keys. So be sure you have an account, or you can already key in them. So I'm going to go into the file, the key API manager. So I'm having 11 map and API, open API, and a replicate instant. I'm going to close those windows. And here, what we did also is like we developed like a very simple interface. So this block is called former.io. So you just have to type your prompt into these things. And as you can see, you have the run recipe button. So this is quite straightforward. So I'm going to type Docker mouse going for the virtual mouse, run the recipe. And here we have different kind of blocks. So first things first, we're going to have like a large language models going like to create the prompt. So we told them like what to do. Is going to send the text into like a SDXL block, and then we're going to generate like an audio, and then we're going to prepare the image. Again, this is like slightly fast forward, but it's quite fast. Within 2 minutes, the thing is done. And let's play the audio.
Once upon a time, there was a curious duck and a playful mouse who set off on an exciting journey to explore the wonders of Mars. Join them as they zoom through space, discover red sandy landscapes, and encounter friendly aliens along the way.
So what is important also is shareability. So we develop tools that like you can create the content, but most importantly, you can download them and you can share your discovery with your friends and your peers. This one is like the favorite of my kids. So it's a very good tool to use with kids to create like a being better prompt and like a story, so they love that. The next one, next recipe, this is not on the grid. This is created by Nick. Basically, this one is using a block that's going to analyze an image. And what we're going to do is to analyze an image, to create a prompt, to recreate an image. So I'm a big fan of like a David Hockney. So here I'm going to upload this file. So this is a painting from David Hockney. I'm just going to run it. And here we're having this block from replicate, when it's like a lava block. So basically it's like analyze images, and like you're going to send like to a ChatGPT that's going to create a prompt. I'm going to resize the images to be sure everything is on track. Sometimes SDXL blocks are a bit tricky. Then I'm going to create the render. And here the image, the painting from David Hockney, is also going to help us to serve as a guide to be sure we control like the output of the image. So from a painting, we're going to have a text, and also we're going to have an image. So you can see here the 2 images, and they are quite similar. So basically we kind of like retro engineer a painting to see what was the artist or the painter viewings. And that's kind of interesting of like how you can use different kind of models to create like any kind of like output very easily. So Nick created that in few hours. That was quite fast. The last one I'm going to use is the Yearbook Photo Studio. So this one is like slightly more complex. So basically, there is 2 things like you need to do. Of course, you need to check your API, but there is something else that we're going to talk about. it's kind of the ethical implication. So we try to be good guys, but of course people try to do bad things. So when we're using like this kind of like a face swapping technologies, we need to be mindful about what we are doing. And that's why also like we try to really have this kind of guidelines. The second point is about bias in the models. Sometimes they are trained in a certain way. So we need to be also aware of like, if we can try different models, some have certain bias, some have different bias, but then it's really based on how they're trained. So this is why it's also very good to have a tool that can like allow you to try different kind of things. So the first thing I'm going to do is to use the chat, take a picture of myself, that was done yesterday. I'm going to send that into the output. So I'm going to press the run recipe button, and I'm going to analyze the image. It's going to determine like my gender. It's going to create the prompt for the SDXL block, which is going to send to the face swap. I'm not going to dive into like how to tweak this thing. We'll do that like in a few minutes. And then basically what's going to happen, I'm going to fast forward a bit, because it's a bit long. You can see I'm having slightly a darker face. It's because I'm quite tan, and sometimes the SDXL block do like that. If I take a picture, like York, for example, because York is cool, we're going to run that. I'm going to fast forward. So basically, you can see we can have different kind of inputs. We can take pictures, you can load files. So basically, you can take any images and like try to use this kind of face swap. And here we're having a young girl with like a nice sunglasses, like sense. And the last thing is like, it was just to try out. What if I'm using like these famous actors, and I keep forgetting his name, look at black and white images, and how we can run it. So as you can see the result, it's kind of interesting. Basically, from a black and white images, you can have something which is like a recolors, and we can have like a younger actors. So that's the things which is kind of interesting with Omnitool. You have constantly updated list of like a new recipes, so you can like try things to see how they works. And once you like the result of what you want to do, you can of course share what you've been doing, but most importantly, you keep like discovering new possibilities, new capabilities made with AI. And I'm going to quickly jump into the learn part. So this one, do you have any questions? Sorry, thank you, Nick. It's a good point. If not, I'm going on. And I hope like my French accent is not too bad. Okay, so let's keep going. So what we're going to try here is to basically like dive a bit deeper into the block. So I'm going to reload as a template. So we have like a template blocks, and I want to be sure I'm using the right one. First things first, check your API keys. This is very important. Here I'm going to use OpenAI and replicates. I got them, I'm fine. You check if you have any issues about like the blocks themselves, if you think there is little implication or whatever, and let's dive in. So first things first, we're going to load a file. So I'm going to use again like a Georg face. I'm sorry, Georg, please don't fire me after that. I swear I will change some things. Makes sense. This block, the recipe metadata, is the one who create like basically like all the info you have on the right. So this is generated for every recipe. It gives you like all the information you need to have before you run the recipe. So if something doesn't work, maybe it's because you don't have the API key. So be sure you install the extension, you have the proper API keys, and you're good to go. Chat input, then we're having the replicate block that analyzes the images. In this case, going to analyze like a Bjork's face. This chat GPT is going to create a prompt and is going to send it to the SDXL, the image generation block. You have many parameters. So as a good advice, don't try to change these things all at once. It's the best recipe to have something bad happening. So if you want to tweak these blocks, try to do one by one, do screenshots, record what you're doing. That's the best way like to keep learning of like what's working and what's not working. So I'm going to also show you what's not working because you need to know. And then we have two chat outputs, one for the images and one for the code. So what I'm going to do here is like to rerun the recipe. So there is two run button. As you can see, there is one under the image. You can use either or, but be mindful of like, be sure you've loaded something into the chat. So otherwise it won't work. You will have like a default images render. And here we have another girl. So a different one, a nice curly hair. There is something about seeds. So basically, in your SDXL images, if you want to have exactly the same, there is this field called seed when you want to have exactly the same thing. So basically, it's kind of like the DNA or fingerprint of like a generative images. As you can see, I'm not an engineer, I'm a designer. So if it's not the technical language, I'm sorry about that. What you can see here is basically what the SDXL have done. So we created an image, then we need to take like a girl's face, and then we're going to match them together. That's some things like as a designer will have taken me like hours to do. Now we can do that like within like a few minutes. Then you say, okay, cool, very nice, but I want to try something different. I want to try another kind of like, I've heard of like Hugging Face. I want to try this block. Fair enough. Interoperability is like what we do. So I'm just going to add a block. So I'm going to the block manager, adding this block, and I'm just going like to put the prompt into this one and change and disable the other block. So there is little toggles, so it's kind of like easy to enable, disable. I'm going to run that. Fast forward a bit. And basically, I don't have a good result. So this is what you want to learn also is to try out which blocks are the best to work with what you want to do. So you know they are trained with different kind of data model or whatever. So this is very important for us, is like to be able to just try new things. Nick is going to dive more into like how you're going to import certain kind of blocks or how you want to do certain things. But testing with different kind of models is very important. It's easy to do, just like a plug and play, and then up you go. Now, what I want to do is to change a bit the prompt. I'm not a big fan of like this retrofill, so I want to change some things like a bit more fun and young. So prompt is one part of generating images. So here I'm going to have like a 1990s. I want to have something colorful. I want to have long hair. And basically, just by changing the prompt and changing a bit of like what is the input of how you're going to fit the image creation is going to change the thing drastically. I'm going to run again. So as you see, I press on the image above because I didn't want to reload again. So I just like scroll my chat bar and then I can go for it. And here we have the amazing result of what you saw before. So he has the wrong numbers of fingers. I'm sorry, Georg, that's true. But what is interesting is like suddenly you can really create like a different kind of look and feel. So with just few words changed, you have a different kind of things. Now what I'm going to show you is like what happens if you
I have a note. I have a
Yeah.
note to make because it's kind of interesting, right? You've noticed that several of the images show the camera, right? And that also comes from the prompt. You're often using words from photography to guide the prompt, like a close-up shot or something like that. And or like some people invoke the camera. They say like a Sony photographer and so on. That includes the risk of getting the camera in there. The model basically says you want a camera. There's a specific setting called the negative prompt that you can see on this block that is currently suspended on the screen, where you can put what you don't want, and that makes it fairly easy to control for these negative effects.
Yes. So that could be, for example, not showing cameras, having the right numbers of fingers. And as you can see here, we're more like focused on like, we don't want to have any not safe for work content. We want to have like good quality images. So good point, Georg. I didn't think of that. But that's why prompting also is very important. Tweak your prompt is going to change everything. And some models are better with some kind of prompt than other things. So just be mindful of that. So what happens if you start to tweak like all the things? So default values are very important. So if I change suddenly like everything, I'm going to show you like an error message. It's very easy to have because here we're going to talk about like a safe switch. If you reduce all the numbers, basically you're going to have, you think maybe there's going to be a very fast way to render, but you're going to have a mistake. Because if it's too bad quality, the image, basically there is some fail switch that are going to tell you this is not possible, this is like not safe for our content. This is not true. Basically, what you have here is an image so blurry, so bad quality that you have a safe switch going on, and basically you cannot see what's going to happen. So that's why also the chat is very important. Look at the error. When you learn, you do mistakes. That's the purpose of that. Look at your chat and see like what kind of error you're having. So what I said at the beginning, change the values one at a time, try to slide the things one at a time. until you get something you like or some kind of error message. So error is really part of that. And now I'm going to do something. So I really like the input of the output of Georg. And so I'm going to disable everything. So I just want to test something new. So I've heard about I can make like animated videos. So I want to try like a speech to text. I'm going to add this block. So this one is like 11 lab. So you need to be sure, do you have the API key? Are you sure you have installed all your extension? I'm going to use the replicate extension. I'm going to add the model. So in this case, I need to go to the replicate website. I'm going to copy paste the name of the model only, nothing else. Just going to paste it, add the model, going to close the windows, add, and we are almost good to go. So here what I'm going to do is to just plug and play an audio to the driven audio. I plug my results into the source image, and I'm going to put into the output, chat output to the video socket. I'm going to type in my things, and then basically what's going to happen, I'm going to fast forward. We're going to have a video render. So part of learning is experimenting.
My name is Georg. I build Omnitool.
Voilà, that's it. Not with a German accent. So just to wrap up on like the learn part, dive into the blocks. Once you find the recipe you like, try to see what are the things that are working, plug, unplug the sockets, take screenshots, take notes of what you've changed, because sometimes it's very hard to find back. And then also take some result, tweak it a bit to see what you can do, how you can extend the things. It's fairly easy to do. Just a gentle reminder, I'm not an engineer at all. I'm just a designer. And I've been learning so much by using like this tool for the past 4 months. I've been joining Omnitool, and every day I learn new things. So experimentation, try new things, that's going very fast. And that's really something like, as you can see, I'm kind of like closing the gaps between like a Nick, which is like a super rock star, and me, I'm starting to create like a new recipe. So this is why like Omnitool is such like a fun tool to use. And now hands on to Nick.
Yeah, thank you
So much.
That's a very interesting, very fun demo. But before we jump to the next session, we're gonna take first two questions from Tianyi. So the first question from Tianyi is asking, in order to use the SDXL, we will need to download the model to a local device. Is this my understanding correct? Anyone from our team, feel free to jump in this one, but I can answer a bit. So the answer is not necessary, but it really depends. It really depends where the model is hosted. So in our demo so far, we are using the model host replicate. So they are basically host the model on their end on the clouds. So when we open up replicate to download the model, it actually didn't really download the model. It just quickly integrate the API. It download the API stack, and we quickly integrate with the API so that Omnitool can interact with that cloud models. So that's
Yeah.
What is
Yeah. So the neat thing about Omnitool, and I think one of the biggest problems it solves, right, is that there are so many vendors competing with building these things, right? You have Stable Diffusion, which is an open source technology originally offered by Stability AI. They have a cloud service, which is supported in Omnitool. It's called Dream Studio or Stable Diffusion API. You could use that. We have Replicate, which is a favorite of researchers and people in the open source community. You can go to replicate.com/explore. You can go through 2,000 models, I think, getting more weekly. We have an integration there where you just copy the URL or the name of the model, you press a button, and the block is auto-generated for you. Right. We have Hugging Face, probably the largest repository of AI models, some like 80,000. Many of which are accessible through our Hugging Face integration. You have GetImage, which is a more specialized service that has a lot of fine tunes available. Also, Replicate has that as well. You can find like comic models and like models that are tuned to the specific directions that you would want, right? And as like probably sometime next week, we're gonna push out the support for all the local capabilities, like automatic 1111, which is a very, very favorite of people for using Stable Diffusion on their own computer. But all the API methods are not requiring any hardware, which I think is really important, because if you want to run Stable Diffusion on local hardware for images, the best models still take quite a decent graphics card or like a modern Mac to run them, and can be quite resource intensive, meaning they lock up your computer while that is happening for pretty much everything else. But you have both options. Like Automatic, we have a decent integration with, which should be pushed next week if you want to do that. So part of what Omnitool tries to solve is actually this question. All these providers, everyone offering models, everyone has different billing, everyone has different thoughts. We have DALL-E integration as well. I think as soon as the DALL-E 3 API is out, we will have the DALL-E 3 integration as well. So there's about, I don't know, last time I checked, there were over 250 different image generation models that you can access through our app. For the vast majority of them, you don't have to download anything. But if you want to do that, you can, and you can use the local capabilities. I hope that answers your question. Not yet, Calvin.
Yeah, thank you, Georg. Yeah, I think that also resonates to the one of value Omnitool provides that I mentioned earlier, the adaptability.
Yeah.
Right. You can blend cloud provider. You can also host in-house in your local to use all the models. Yeah, in one place. So another question from Tianyu as well is it possible to bulk create image in this workflow? For example, use 4 prompts to return 4 images at a time.
Yes.
Yes, you can do that. There are several ways. First way is you can just create a workflow that having 4 different paths, taking 4 different images to run at the same time. Or maybe some models, they doesn't take multiple images at one time. Or some models, they allow to take multiple images in a array at a time. So you can just streaming multiple image, stay into one block, and it will output the multiple image. Yeah. So the answer is that first one depends on how the model's input is, and second is if it doesn't support multiple image input, it can easily build by split the workflow into 4 paths. Yeah. I hope that's answer your questions.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Tianyu. And the next question, is there a Docker image for Omnitool? Okay, Adil already answered that. Not yet, but yeah, it should be straightforward. That's probably a roadmap.
Should be really straightforward. You just want to map the data directory somewhere outside of the image, I think. We run it successfully on Proxmox containers like LXC. Nick has managed to run it on GCP, like Google Cloud hosted VMs. It should run in like Linux containers, and Docker should be straightforward. I suspect it will run on Alpine as well. We're using Node.js. There's very little dependencies that require hardware integration. Like I think the closest thing are the image manipulation things that are happening, and they're popular enough that most node distributions should have them. So it's possible. We're also working on options for running Omnitool in the cloud. We obviously understand that, let's say in an education environment, for example, it's probably, if you have a multi-week course, it's fine to spend the first 60 minutes telling people how to install it because it's a valuable skill to have and so on. But if you're running a shorter course where you want to get people hands-on, like we're aiming to have a shrink wrap solution where you click like a Zoom link like thing and play it, and we're actively looking at that option.
Yep. Thank you, Georg. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay. Here's the question for Kelvin. Can recipes blocks be parameterized to build custom UI for workflows? Can the chat invocation be exposed as an API?
Yes, all of it is already there, actually. So the Omnitool currently supports 3 input modes. It has a chat input mode, which you see in these chat blocks, and we actually ship with 2 different chats. We ship with a local chat, which you see in most of these UIs, and a WhatsApp web kind of chat, which isn't finished, but has a much more familiar experience for people. Those use the chat input. We have a form input, which is powered by form.io, which allows you to have a visual form builder, actually. And you can map any field you want to that. You basically just connect a bunch of lines to expose the fields. And the third one, where we're shipping the full support in the coming week, is API. So you can create a JSON web token, and you can invoke any workflow that you see in the app, any recipe via API, or any block, which is incredibly powerful if you are a software engineer, because you now have a single platform with access to some, 8,000 whatever AI models and utility blocks authenticated with a single JSON web token. The full support for that is going to ship in the next week. I've actually just finished coding most of it. So, yeah. And we'll show another extension in the remaining demo, which shows you basically what you can do. But anything if you have even a little HTML5 or JavaScript knowledge, you can build basically anything within Omnitool and have full access through the SDK to all of these models, all of these functions, which is very convenient.
Cool. We keep going on. I think we need to keep track on the question, because what Nick is going to cover may answer or raise more questions. So just to be sure, like, we are keeping track of time.
Yep. Thank you. That's all good question. I noticed some questions from that, but we can answer that in the end. So let's move on. For now,
we need to have more questions.
Yep. This one.
Because
okay, before we start the demo, I want to explain a bit the terminology we're using Omnitool. We talk about API block recipe. I found some people confused about this. I want to explain this. So in the previous demo, you have seen how when setting up an API key, like replicate one, it provides you to access to a wide range of AI models from replicates. So you can think the API in Omnitool as a full supplier. So once you activate it, you basically unlock those ingredients, which refers to as blocks. So these blocks are stored in our blocks collection or blocks managers. So just like your kitchen's fridge or like your pantry, which has all the ingredients and cookware, it's ready for you to use. So take OpenAI, for example. Once you activate it, you got blocks like GPT models for text generation. You got DALL-E for image generation, and you got other utility blocks like text embeddings, etc. So if I'm using the same analogy, you are basically like a chef. So once you have those blocks, it's up to you to mix and match these blocks, experiment, cook something, create unique recipes. So that's where the recipe is. But what if you want to add more variety? That's where the extension come in. So extension is like you go to supermarket, grocery store, you go to kitchen equipment shop, you want to acquire new tools or new ingredients that allow you to cook more complicated things. So installing an extension might open up to more APIs, and of course with the APIs blocks. Or you could just provide utility blocks that doesn't really need API key. But whatever extension can even do more. It's it basically allows you to integrate anything, any JavaScript tool into Omnitool. Or you can add in new interface, you can add in functionality. Yeah, it's basically everything, everywhere at once you can do. And extensions are either built by Omnitool team, by us, or it can be contributed by our community on GitHub. So let me walk you through an example that use a tool from extension to create a recipe. So let's move on to the build demo. All right, so here now I'm going to show you how to create a new recipe from scratch. So now I'm going to add a new recipe, give some meaningful name on tool workshop demo for today. So in the first view, you will see a block called recipe metadata. It's a place you can give a meaningful description for your recipes. And you can rename title. And here there's a small windows. That is the instruction windows. By default, we show a checklist, remind you what you should add for creating recipes. But you can easily override that information with whatever instruction that related to your user for these recipes. You can add your name, you can add some text, you can, yeah. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add most important blocks, interface block that's called check input and output. So as you can guess, what it does, basically, it takes the files from or data from your chat interface and also return back the result to the chat interface. So we basically use this for most of the recipes. All right, and I'm going to show you extensions. That's the main part of today. So here is an extension called Open Post Editor extensions made by founder Georg. This is a cool one. I'm going to show you how to use it. Since I already installed this extension, so I don't have to install here. But on your end, if this is your first time to install extension, you will see an install button, and it will tell you to restart your servers. So now, since I already have it, I just open it directly. So this is a very cool tool. So it allows you to create an open post form, humans. You can create posters. So now I'm going to adjust the hand, making more lively. So you got the idea. So let me forward a bit. So once you create the bond, once you adjust the posture, you can easily export the image back to Omnitool. So you can fetch the image from file managers. So file managers, you show all items, and that's it. So add to the canvas. So we are going to use this image as input for a model to create something cool. So now I'm going to search for a model from Hugging Face that take open post form as an input to generate image. So this is the only one I found so far. If you guys found another good one, feel free to share. So this one is SD component open post. So as you can see here, it indeed take the open post form as an input. So I'm going to use this one.
But this one is not really nice, right? It's an old model.
Yeah. So I need to highlight this model is based on the old versions, old stable diffusions model, likely the 1.5. It's not the premium one, which is the SDXL, the higher quality one, but it's fine. I will show you how we're gonna chain with another model. to reach what we want. So here I'm going to add a block that is Hugging Face block. And since the model is image to image model, I consider to use the image to image. Just add it. And here I just copy, paste the model name, and connect the image here. I'm going to give you some a bit prompts. So let's just create something simple, because what I'm going to do, I just want to create a simple posture human image. So I'm going to create a dancing element. I want the background to be clean. I just input a white background. And since this is the so negative prompt is very important. And since this is the older version of the diffusions, it usually require long, lengthy negative prompts. So I'm lazy, I just copy paste from my note here. And I convert the input to check output, run it. So as you can see, we got the Iron Man. The quality is not good, but it's fine. We don't care about the quality in this stage. We can also tweak about this, the prompt, see if we can get a better results. That's forward. So one thing I want to, as a pro tip here. So we have a blocks called prompt parsers. So what it does is it actually leverage ChatGPT, the LLM model, to help us to optimize the prompt. So you can simply input simple descriptions. As what I did, I'm lazy, I just put a simple description. And I rely on the LLM to help me create the more thorough prompts so that I can generate a better output. So these parsers, there's a positive output, there's a negative output. Oops, I guess I'm connecting this wrong here. Okay, let me reconnect. Positive, negative. Right. So looks like we get the image is deformed, but the quality, the painting quality is better. But we can still tweaking it. Now I want to create a density instead. Just something simple, just something plain by backdrop. Run it. Okay, we're getting there. This is exactly the image I want to use for my next step. Not high quality image, but we don't care. So in the next step, I'm going to find another model from replicates, which is fine-tuned based on the higher quality model, which is SDXL. It didn't take open post born directly. That's why we didn't use it in the first place. But it take images. So now I'm going to copy that. I check the example here to understand how to use this image, use these models. So I'm forward here. Let's forward. All right, so we are going to add the model. So one thing to know here, different from Hugging Face, since replicate is an extension, so we have to go to extensions, OpenAI replicate, and add models. Add the models, then it populates a new block for me, connect it. Okay. Okay, I just copy the example prompt there to give you a try. So let me connect the image. Okay, one thing I want to highlight here is since this model is SDXL model, the model has some, restriction, not restriction, but prerequisites. The model is trained based on a higher resolution image. So to get a better output, we need to also input a higher resolution image. And the good one to start with is 1024 by 1024. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to resize my image. And here I want to introduce another extension we have. It's called Sharp. You can find it from Extension Manager and install it. So this extension basically provides you with a lot of image processing utility blocks. For example, you can blur your image, you can combine your image, you can create masks. So now the one I'm trying to find is resize image. So I can easily add it. Okay, come back here. So I want the output to be 1024 by 1024. Next. And so by default, it gives me a seat. You can just leave it there, or we can input 0. Just let us to automatically randomize for you.
Yeah, because 0 is the basic value for randomized, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the output, now you see the blur image. The reason why we see blur image here is because on Omnitool we have a non-suitable for work NSFW filter systems. So whenever we detect an image, maybe it's not high quality, it's not suitable to show, or we just block it, we just blur it. And because we set a very high standards, especially for this demo. So sometimes it has a false positive. Yeah, but it's okay, you can try a few more times. But now I'm going to just tweak the prompt a bit. I'm going to generate another image.
Yeah, on that point, right? Like one of the challenges, especially when you're using the older Stable Diffusion models, which probably have a little bit overrepresented nudity in their training base, there is a significant risk, let's say somewhere single-digit percent, that what you get, even if you're not asking for it, might contain accidental nudity, parts of nudity, and so on. And that's very challenging, especially if you're trying to deploy this, let's say, into an education or a business environment. And it's one of the reasons why it's actually very risky to deploy this technology just like, oh, this looks like a great way to enhance our product, our website, whatever it is, throw the technology in, because you don't even need to be malicious. Users don't need to ask for nudity to get nudity. And the answer, as in many things with AI, is unfortunately more AI. So in this case, we integrated a nudity detection. Those are also fallible. There's basically nothing in this technology that is 100%. And the more blocks you use, the more different systems you use, the more you're compounding errors. And that is just the reality of this technology and part of what holds it back from being adopted in a product. And we're hoping with Omnitool to give people a sense of that, but it also comes with the risk. There's really, if you work with these models, that risk is always there and present. And while there are safety measures, they can only go so fast.
Thank you. Since I'm aware of the time, maybe we fast forward a bit. So now I'm going to tweak the prompt. I'm going to want to create an image that's having a young hip hop dancer, confident, colorful. Since we're all from ad tech background, we want let's create an advertisement image here. So I add some negative prompt. Okay. Not too bad. The hand is not perfect as most of the keys, but I think with further tweaking on the prompt, we can get better results. So now in the next step, I want to show you how we can train with another models. This model is really cool. I really love it. Lohan already showed this earlier, which is Lava. So it basically can understand your image, and you can ask questions about this image.
It's the open source equivalent to GPT-4 Visual, or one of the first open source equivalents, which is really neat.
Yeah. So what I want to do, I want it to write an inspiring advertisement taglines that matches pictures. So I forward to me. And very cliche, I want to encourage young people to be themselves. I think that matches this picture. So let's do that. All right. So it helped me to create a tagline: paint your own canvas, be the colorful masterpiece you are meant to be. Not bad. And since it's advertisements, I might want to add a voice over these taglines. So in the next step, I'm going to add something to make it add a little bit thought on that. So I'm using 11 labs for the text-to-speech blocks. I connect the output to it. And
express yourself like a colorful canvas. Be true to who you are and let your unique style shine through.
Very sensing, very emotional. So that's great. So that's pretty much of the demo today. So to summarize this demo, so this recipe basically use multi-models. The first step, we use the extension, OpenPost extension, to create an OpenPost font as an image input. And the next step, we used a model from Hugging Face, image to image, to generate our first poster image. The quality is not good, but we don't care, because we use another model from Replicate to generate the higher quality image. And we add Lava LM models to describe the image, give us a cheesy tagline, and we add on 11 labs for voiceovers. So this is an advertisement one. It's not perfect, but I think this one can show, give you some idea how you can build something from scratch. So I'm going to fast forward here since we're run out of time, but thanks. So last thing I want to highlight here is so any recipe you create, you can easily export into a JSON file, and anyone can re-import into their own tools.
So after this chat, we're going to drop the recipe on Discord, and then you can try it also.
Yeah, you can try it. You can make it better for this recipe, and you can share it back to us. Because I believe there's always better ideas on this. So that's all from these demos. I hope this is insightful for you. So let's hand over the mic.
Let me quickly address YY's question about, like, is there a list of all the models available or all the blocks? It's a bit tough because there's literally thousands, and that is because we are integrating deeply into places like Replicate, that's like 1,500 models, I think, and growing weekly. Hugging Face, I think on paper they're like 80,000. I don't know how many of them are actually useful and usable, but probably tens of thousands. We support most of the OpenAI, like GPT-4, GPT-3, 3.5, DALL-E, Whisper, and so on. We support quite a bit from Stability AI, from TextSynth. So if you take all of it together, there's thousands and thousands of blocks. We recognize that there's probably a better way needed for discovering that. We were a little bit overwhelmed just with the growth of the ecosystem. But the choice we made is, well, two choices. One, it's open source. Two, it's extremely easy to turn an external API into a block. That is basically the entire idea of this product. So you can, if you say, oh, there's this particular API that is missing, it is usually a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of maybe an hour to get that supported and added. And basically anyone with fairly basic JavaScript or data editing skills can often do it. So the entire idea here is this is continuously increasing. The number of blocks, building blocks, AI models is multiplying out in the real world at a massive, massive rate. No one can stay on top of it. We try to build a software that allows you to stay on top of it, but we're lacking right now a bit on the discovery and maybe editorial side to help people understand. But that is something we're going to obviously invest in, because we want to help people understand, grapple with the technology, and build on top of it. And so even if you have, like in your company, in your organization, if you have a JavaScript programmer with like a year of experience, maybe like honestly, like a student will do, they can integrate almost anything you can imagine, including some of your own apps if they want to, because it's all built on open, very well documented standards. And we had extremely good experience with using something like GPT-4 to even turn APIs that aren't following those standards into something that can be fed into Omnitool.
Okay. So I'm just going like to do the wrap up, just and also going to answer some question after. So just to recap of like what we've seen today. So basically, we saw there is like a quality and consistency if you look at like all the hype in this like applied AI kind of like race. So this is why discovering is very important. It keeps you like aware of like all the new technologies, not to be bluffed like if it's overhyped or underestimated, but discover more. We try to always like create new recipes. It's, as you can see also, it's very easy to import block. This is why also learning is our key pillars, because this is really about like everything is so fast, and we saw like skill gaps and obsolescence. So this is why to really have this kind of like easy to understand UI, to be hands-on. There is nothing as much as important to learn Apple AI, like to be hands-on, to try to tweak, to duplicate, replicate, and to try new things. And at the end, I think that the demonstration of like Nick was really impressive, because it's all about the adaptation. So you can try things, everything is compatible. You can take some old model, mix them with new models, and you don't get stuck because things are not working. You can just find a way to make these things working. So extensions are extremely powerful. There is a seamless integration into the AI models. API is also getting like updated. So basically, the way you can prototype, the way you can do your proof of concept is extremely important. The recipe, like Nick's Biz, done that like in what, 24 hours, less than that. So this is really about like how these kind of like three pillars, the discovery, the learning part, and the building part, are really the kind of like the way of like Omnitool is built around. But there is the things which is the most important, share the things. So we just launched the Discord. We're really going to try to do more and more things there. So be there, try to share your recipe, try to share also like what the outputs you're having, ask your questions. I saw a question also about like how to install everything. So give us some feedback, and then we're going to try to do like more tutorials, more workshop like that, when we can really try to be there and to be part of the community. So therefore we can really make like a cool things with Applied AI.
Yeah, we haven't gone out yet and advertised this tool. Actually, there's a very small number of people who know that it exists, because we've been debugging installation challenges and trying to make it easier. We will open the funnel gradually over the next couple of weeks. We'll probably run a few more of these sessions, but in the meantime, as an early adopter, feel free to jump into the Discord, ask us any questions, and we'll see how we can help, how to get you going with it. Thank you, everyone.
You want to answer some of the question?
Let me check. I guess Georg already answered most of them. Something else like connected. Is there any question we haven't answered on the chat?
Well,
yet?
I can maybe rephrase them very quickly since they won't be visible on the video, right? One question is, can we drag and drop documents onto the canvas? It's actually a bug you cannot. We don't do drag and drop because drag and drop is a nightmare right now in the browser. It's very hard to get right across multiple browsers, but the intended workflow is you go into the file manager, you press the upload button, you upload your assets. You can upload like 50, 60 files at once, although at some point it probably chokes. And you can select these files or multi-select these files with right click and then press, say, add to Canvas, or run in current recipe, and we'll run it like the chat input or something like that. It does not work for documents right now. That's a bug. We're going to address that in the near future. And for like, list of blocks, I think we can probably at some point, we should probably auto-generate a list of all the blocks that are available because it's kind of impressive and probably good sales material. So I'll probably spend the time to do that. It seems useful.
Thank you, Georg. I think we cover most of the questions. Any questions? Please feel free to raise your hand now.
Or on the Discord after, we'll be there like to answer the problem.
Yeah. So if no more questions, yes, please join the community, share your feedback, and stay tuned on our upcoming updates as well there. Thank you so much for your questions, for discussions. We're looking forward to see you play with Omnitool and share what you find with us. So thanks for your participating, and we look forward to talk to you more.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.